Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started. Today we are looking at what is, I think, one of the most significant tipping points in modern aviation.
It really is.
We're talking about the moment the commercial drone world stops being, special permission aviation and starts becoming routine, scalable, industrial infrastructure.
Right. Moving from a niche to a utility.
Exactly. And our mission today is to really understand the seismic forces that are hitting this industry right now, because you have these two things happening at once.
They're completely reshaping the U.S. supply chain on one hand.
And on the other, creating the regulatory structure for routine beyond visual line of sight flight, BVLOS.
It's a transition that's, been promised for a decade,
Yeah.
But now we actually have concrete dates and real proposals on the table.
For years, if you wanted to fly BVLOS, where the pilot can't physically see the aircraft, you had to stitch together this incredibly complex tapestry of waivers and exemptions.
Oh, it was a nightmare of paperwork. And while it worked to prove the concept, the numbers are staggering. We saw FAA BVLOS approvals surge from just over 1,200 in 2020 to almost 27,000 by 2023.
So the demand is just exploding.
The demand is absolutely there.
Yeah.
The industry is hungry for it, but the system, the old waiver system, is basically choking on its own success.
Right, because every single one of those approvals is bespoke. It's custom tailored and it's agonizingly slow. You can't build a utility on that. You can't build something like, cell phone coverage on a case-by-case basis.
You absolutely can't. And that's the point. The core concept here isn't just about making drones fly further. It's about making the systems reliable enough for the regulator to trust them without a person's eyes on the aircraft at all times.
Okay, let's anchor on that because it's a huge shift in philosophy. We know BVLOS means the drone is far away. Simple enough. But that hides the real change, doesn't it?
It really does. When you're flying visual line of sight or VLOS, safety is immediate. It's tactical. It's like you're driving a car looking through the windshield.
Your eyes, your reaction time, that's the primary safety mechanism.
Precisely. BVLOS flips that completely on its head.
Yeah.
It's not about driving one car anymore. It's about running an entire train network.
That's a great analogy.
You, the human, you're not on the tracks watching the train. You're in a control center, managing the whole network using systems, procedures, automation, and a constant stream of telemetry data.
And if something goes wrong, like a signal drops,
the system has to handle it. It has to resolve that problem safely and, most importantly, predictably, without any human intervention. Safety becomes a function of engineered reliability.
So it's about certified tech, robust procedures, disciplined organizations. It's not about having a pilot with great spic skills.
Not anymore. And that brings us to the key regulatory blueprint for all of this, Part 108.
This is the centerpiece, right? This is the FAA's big play to normalize everything. What is Part 108 and why is the timing so critical?
Part 108 is the proposed FAA rule. The official title is something like Normalizing UAS BVLOS Operations. And based on the sources we have, it's slated for proposal around August 2025.
And its goal isn't just another waiver path.
No, its intent is to completely replace that waiver world we talked about, to get rid of the bespoke, one-off model and put in a defined, repeatable, rule-based regime.
So it'll codify the rules, define specific permits or certificates for different kinds of operations.
Exactly, and it will mandate the necessary technology, like certified detect and avoid systems. It is the blueprint for making scalable BVLOS operations a standard, repeatable thing.
So you're moving from asking for permission for something exceptional to just following the process for something routine.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not happening in a vacuum. You have this unique situation, these two massive regulatory shocks hitting the industry at the exact same time.
Changing the hardware you can buy and the rules you have to follow.
It's a simultaneous upheaval for anyone planning a fleet for 2026.
All right, let's dive deep into those two drivers. We'll start with the huge constraint coming from the supply chain side. There is so much chatter out there, a lot of fear about a drone ban, but for the people listening to this, the enterprise operators, we need to be really clear about where this pressure is coming from.
Yes.
This isn't an FAA flight safety thing. It's coming from the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission.
Yeah.
And it's about security.
That is the most crucial nuance to understand. This is an action scheduled for December 22, 2025, and it hits the electronic supply chain right where it lives. The FCC is adding certain foreign-produced drones and, more importantly, critical components to its covered list.
A list that's all about national security and communications integrity.
Exactly.
So mechanically, how does this work? How does the FCC, which deals with radio waves, effectively restrict which drones you can buy?
It all comes down to equipment authorization. Every single drone uses radio frequency RF for command and control, for telemetry, for video feed.
It has to talk.
It has to talk. And for any RF device to be legally sold or marketed in the U.S., it needs an FCC equipment authorization. This FCC action blocks new foreign-made drone models and some of those critical components from ever getting that authorization.
So if you can't get the authorization?
You can't legally import it, you can't market it, you can't sell it. It effectively stops new models at the border.
Let's translate this into BVLOS economics. If you're an operator and you've built your business on, say, high-performance, affordable systems that have historically been dominated by foreign manufacturers, what does this do to your plan for 2026?
It creates, frankly, chaos and expense. The entire economics of the default drone supply just changes overnight.
The easy button is gone.
It's gone. The market loses that path of just acquiring the latest and greatest, most affordable foreign platform. The results are pretty immediate. You have fewer choices, probably much higher prices because you've just slashed the competition, and much slower refresh cycles.
I can just hear the groans from small and medium operators. I mean, this is a direct hit to the companies who built their fleets on that exact kind of cost-effective, high-spec hardware.
It absolutely is. It's a massive point of friction. Now, we have to be super clear here to avoid panic.
Right.
Existing, previously authorized drones are still usable. The FAA isn't going to come and take the drone you bought yesterday. This is about new authorizations moving forward.
But that's still a huge problem. Just the uncertainty, knowing that if your current model is discontinued or it needs a major update, you might not be able to replace it easily. That freezes your scaling plans right there.
It completely freezes them. And that brings us to the paradox of the supply chain. Because our sources are pointing out that just having a Made in the USA label on the box doesn't get you out of this.
That's the really tricky part.
It's the deepest friction point. The FCC is targeting critical components. We're talking about the guts of the aircraft.
The flight controller, the brains.
The flight controller, the communication systems, the ground control station, even things like smart batteries or specialized motors if they have RF components.
So you could be a U.S. company assembling a drone in, say, Texas. But if your flight controller is sourced from a covered foreign country and they release a new version,
you stop.
Or you need to swap out a comms link for a better one that needs a new authorization.
You're stuck. Your U.S.-branded drone is affected because that new critical component inside it needs an FCC authorization, and that component is on the covered list.
So for a BVLOS operator trying to build a predictable, repeatable fleet for the next 5 years, this is a nightmare. It creates a massive bottleneck for maintenance, support, and just planning for the future.
In essence, yeah. The FCC is acting as a kind of security turbocharger. It's forcing the entire industry to care about provenance in a way they just didn't have to before.
And that's the explicit rationale, right? It's all framed around national security.
It is. It's about mitigating the risks of surveillance, data exfiltration, remote disablement. It aligns perfectly with the broader concerns we see from CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, about protecting critical infrastructure.
So if you're flying over a power grid or a port, the origin of your hardware and its software is no longer a footnote on a spec sheet.
It's a security mandate. It's line one on the proposal.
What does this do to the compliance workload for a BVLOS operator that has, say, a utility as a client?
Oh, the overhead just skyrockets.
Yeah.
You now have immediate, non-negotiable requirements. Your enterprise customers are going to demand, first, rigorous supply chain provenance, documents, proof of where every critical part came from.
An audit trail for the hardware.
Exactly. Seconds are going to demand aggressive cyber hardening, treating the drone network like any other potential attack vector that needs to be isolated and protected. And third, absolutely bulletproof data governance.
Who owns what? Where is it stored? Who can see it?
All of it. And it all has to be audit-ready. Security scrutiny just becomes a standard part of the deal, which honestly aligns perfectly with the kind of discipline that Part 108 is going to require anyway.
It sounds like this is a massive forcing function for domestic manufacturing, which is the stated goal. But the short-term reality sounds painful.
It's a shock to the system. And the gap between the national desire to onshore all this production and the actual current capacity to supply the market, that gap is significant.
Especially for the really specialized high-performance stuff, advanced sensors, aviation-grade motors.
Right. So the pessimistic but realistic projection is a short-term capability dip. Costs go up, availability of top-tier platforms goes down, all before the domestic supply chain really catches up. And that could slow BVLOS adoption for 18 to 24 months.
So the winning strategy here isn't just buy American. It's what our sources call anti-fragile procurement.
That's the term. It means designing your whole business model to withstand supply chain shock. Diversify your platforms, lock down long-term parts and support agreements. And you have to treat cybersecurity and supply chain security as integrated operational requirements from day one, not as paperwork you bolt on at the end.
Okay, so we've covered the constraint side. The hardware is getting harder to get. Now let's look at the normalization side. The FAA's pivot to the rule world with Part 108.
Right.
And the data is just so clear. Almost 27,000 waiver approvals in 2023. That number alone proves the old system is completely unsustainable.
The demand signal is deafening. And Part 108 is the FAA's attempt to listen. It's their way of codifying all the safety experience they've gained from processing those tens of thousands of waivers.
And the intent is to be transformative.
Absolutely. It's to move from that bespoke mother may I permissioning to a predictable operating regime. It gives the industry the clarity it needs to actually invest in scaling up. It shifts the operator's job from negotiating permission to just diligently executing procedures.
But that's a huge leap. It requires more than just a new rule book. It requires this whole integrated operational and tech structure. You call this the BVLOS scaling stack.
We do. We define it in 5 layers, and if any single layer fails, the whole effort to scale up just derails.
So what's at the bottom? What's the foundation?
The foundation is the aircraft capability layer. This is the hardware itself. It has to have redundancy backup batteries, backup flight controllers. It has to have proven navigation integrity. And it needs to have predictable, defined behaviors when a component fails. The aircraft itself has to be inherently trustworthy.
Okay, so you've got a trustworthy aircraft, then you have to talk to it.
That's layer 2, the communications layer. This means resilient command and control links, or C2. You use guaranteed failover mechanisms, low latency, anti-jamming, and you need explicitly defined lost link behaviors.
What does the drone do exactly when it loses the signal?
Precisely. The regulator needs to know that plan in advance, and the system has to execute that plan flawlessly, automatically, every single time.
The third layer seems like the most revolutionary one for how we manage the sky, the airspace services layer.
That's where the systemic shift really happens. Since you can't rely on a pilot's eyes to see and avoid other aircraft, the safety burden has to shift to automated third-party services.
So this layer mandates things like strategic deconfliction, conformance tracking,
and advisory services. The FAA is basically signaling that systems certified, third-party systems, will provide that critical safety assurance. It's essentially outsourcing some of the low-altitude air traffic control functions to automated platforms.
And then you have to wrap all that tech in a human structure.
That's layers 4 and 5. Layer 4 is operations governance. This covers everything from standardized roles for personnel, rigorous training, detailed manuals, meticulous record-keeping, and robust security posture, which, again, the FCC rules are reinforcing.
Part 108 even talks about new job titles, right? Like flight coordinators?
Yes, operational supervisors, flight coordinators. It's a clear signal that the human's job is becoming supervisory, not tactical.
And the final layer, the one everyone forgets until it's too late. Public trust.
The public trust layer. This is managing noise. It's managing privacy concerns. It's getting community acceptance. It's transparent incident reporting. The FAA has specifically said that the industry struggles to gather data on societal benefit.
So if you can't prove you're doing good, and you're just making a lot of noise,
then scaling across a city becomes politically impossible no matter how good your tech is. Public trust is a hard gate. You either have it or you don't.
Okay, that airspace services layer is key. So let's define the 2 big concepts that Part 108 is expected to elevate: strategic deconfliction and conformance monitoring. Why are these the twin pillars?
Because they directly address the safety gap you create when you take the pilot's eyes out of the system. Strategic deconfliction is the first pillar. It means since we can't rely on human reaction time to avoid a mid-air collision.
You have to make sure they're never in the same place at the same time to begin with.
Exactly. It's proactive safety. It's filing a digital flight plan with a service provider that automatically checks for conflicts with other known flights, with terrain, with buildings, with temporary obstacles, before you even launch.
So it's about guaranteeing separation from the start, not trying to dodge things at the last second?
That's it. And the second pillar, conformance monitoring, is the proof. It's the mechanism. It's the real-time and post-flight assurance that the aircraft stayed precisely within its authorized flight path.
That it stayed in its lane.
That it stayed in its lane.
Right.
This provides the audit trail. It's the data that gives safety assurance to the regulator, to the customer, and to other airspace users. You cannot scale a network of autonomous vehicles if you can't prove they are conforming to their plan.
This all sounds like just a tremendous amount of complexity. Certified hardware, redundant comms links, third-party services, compliance reporting. I mean, you're asking a company like a regional electric utility to suddenly become an aviation management expert.
Which they do not want to do.
Which takes us perfectly into the commercial solution for this headache. The rise of drones as a service, DaaS. So if the complexity of BVLOS is just too much for most organizations to take on themselves, the costs, the training, the compliance, then drones as a service seems like the inevitable answer.
You likened it to cloud computing for aviation.
The analogy holds up perfectly. With cloud computing, you rent processing power. You get an SLA for uptime, you don't own the servers, you don't manage the cooling or the power.
You just pay for the capability.
Exactly. DaaS is the same thing. The customer rents reliable audit-ready capability with SLAs for specific outcomes. They don't have to own the high-cost stack. The certified aircraft, the specialized pilots, the maintenance program, the insurance, the compliance department.
Most asset owners, they want the inspection report or the successful delivery. They don't actually want to become an airline.
That's the core value proposition.
But if you're outsourcing all that complexity, aren't you just trading one kind of dependency for another? You're swapping a big capital expense for a very sticky operational expense with one vendor? That is the critical risk, and it's why the contract structure is everything. Our sources are so clear on this. DaaS programs fail, not because the tech isn't good, but because the contract is fundamentally flawed.
If the contract is just for activity like 10 flights per month,
the vendor is incentivized to fly, not to deliver value. The focus has to be on outcomes.
Things like system uptime, response time for an emergency,
guaranteed system uptime, maximum acceptable response time, verifiable evidence quality. And the most critical one is the output work order ready. DaaS is about packaging all those high variable costs into a predictable operational expense, a subscription model. It makes BVLOS predictable, which is what enterprise procurement offices demand.
Okay, for a BVLOS program to really work inside a big company, the tech is almost secondary to the operational playbook. Let's start with the one pitfall that seems to kill more projects than anything else: data governance.
Oh, this cannot be overstated. If data governance is not brutally clear in the contract, I front. The customer is just setting themselves up for vendor lock-in.
And they're getting locked in by their own data.
Now, their own data. The contract needs crystal clear definitions. Who owns the raw imagery? Who owns the telemetry? Who owns the process 3D models? If the vendor uses AI to label defects on your assets, who owns those labels and the resulting AI model?
Because if the vendor owns all that, they hold all the cards if you ever want to switch providers.
They hold all the keys to the kingdom. If your data is trapped in a proprietary format, or the AI you've been training with your data is only accessible through their portal, you can't leave without losing years of valuable history. The contract has to specify non-proprietary export formats and clear data deletion rules. It's the #1 IP trap in data.
All right, moving from data ownership to data utility. The sources all stress that integration is where the ROI is won or lost.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how great the drone footage is if it just ends up in a PDF report that lands in an email inbox and dies.
A data graveyard.
The highest ROI comes when the findings from the drone, the defect reports, the alerts, land directly into the customer's existing systems of record. For utility, that's their CMMS or their EAM system, the software that tracks every single asset they own.
Because if it's a PDF, some human has to read it, interpret it, manually type it into the maintenance system, and then manually create a work order.
And every one of those manual steps is a point of failure and delay. That's where the project stalls. ROI is only realized when the drone's AI automatically generates a priority 3 work order with GPS coordinates and reference photos directly in the system. That's it.
You also need accountability. If you outsource the flying, you can't outsource the ownership of the outcome.
You must have a single throat to choke internally, a dedicated program owner with real authority.
And what does that authority look like?
It means they have the organizational power to set the final defect thresholds, to enforce QA gates on the vendor's data, and crucially, to stop unsafe work immediately. If responsibility is shared across 5 departments, nobody is responsible, and quality and safety will die a slow death.
Let's talk about the messy reality of the sky. Weather. You can sell the BVLOS dream, but the operational limits of these aircraft are unforgiving.
You can't sell BVLOS based on perfect day performance. It's just not realistic. Operational reality: wind, rain, ice is the primary constraint. So a good DaaS contract has to define the precise operational ceilings.
Maximum wind speed, visibility minimums.
Icing rules, lighting proximity rules, and importantly, it has to define the minimum viable coverage the customer can expect during, say, a really bad week of weather. A good vendor sells resilience, and that means having a clear, pre-agreed plan for when the environment pushes back.
And finally, to make all this data actionable, you need evidence standardization.
Right. If you have 3 different vendors inspecting 3 different regions, you need to be able to compare their findings apples to apples. Inconsistent data is operationally useless.
So the customer has to define a minimum standard for every type of finding.
Every single one. Required camera angles, guaranteed image resolution, minimum metadata, a confidence score from the AI, and a unified severity category. The key question for that program owner is this evidence good enough to immediately trigger a work order and withstand an audit? If not, it's just a pretty picture. It has no business value.
This whole service model is evolving quickly, though. It's not static. Our sources lay out a pretty clear maturity path for days. Where are we right now?
We are firmly in stage 1, on-demand days. This is mostly human-flown, project-based work. A vendor is basically a highly competent contractor you hire for a specific job.
Map this construction site, inspect that one bridge.
Exactly. The reporting is basic, usually delivered when the project is over. The competitive edge here is just being fast and responsive.
The big change seems to be tied to Part 108, giving that regulatory certainty. When do we move into true managed programs?
That's stage 2, managed programs. We see that maturing in the next, say, 18 months to 3 to 5 years. And it will accelerate significantly once Part 108 is final.
And this is long-term contracts for recurring routes.
Yes. Think quarterly vegetation patrols along a power line. Operations shift from a pilot in a truck to an ops center monitoring flights. You have deep integration with enterprise systems and strong, auditable QA gates. The companies in this stage look less like drone hobbyists and more like disciplined, small-scale aviation companies selling uptime and certified logs.
And then the final frontier, true networked autonomy.
That's stage 3. Network BVLOS, probably 5 to 10 years out. This is where automation really hits a tipping point. You see drone-in-a-box deployments becoming common.
So a pre-positioned automated drone at a substation or a remote cell tower.
Right. And one supervisor in a control center oversees multiple aircraft at once. The service provider's main product shifts from flight hours to persistent situational awareness as a utility-like service. That's the end goal of the systems over stick shift.
That's a remarkable transition. But where is all this scale going to happen first? Let's look at the economic beachheads, the sectors where BVLOS provides the most value right now. Cargo drones aren't going to replace every delivery truck. That's not the play. They succeed where they can beat ground logistics on physics and economics. And our sources point to a very specific cargo drone sweet spot.
There's a winning formula, and it's defined by a few converging criteria. The payload has to be small, usually under 10 pounds. The mission has to be time critical. It needs to be point-to-point without a lot of complex stops. And it has to be a route with high road friction.
Combined with a high cost of delay.
That's the key. It's a model that strategically dodges everything that makes road transport inefficient.
And the clearest example of that high time value has to be medical logistics.
It is the perfect beachhead. The payload is tiny, a vial of blood, a biopsy sample, but the value of getting it there immediately is immense. Hospitals are constantly moving these things between campuses.
And the alternative is what? A courier in a car, stuck in traffic, carrying something that weighs a few ounces.
Right. So we're seeing huge programs here. UPS, working with partners like Matternet, is building drone logistics directly into their hospital network strategy. They fly controlled, repeatable routes between defined landing pads, and the value is measured in saving lives and research time.
We should pause here and note the regulatory piece. Cargo is a bit different than just inspection.
It is. Commercial package delivery in the U.S. is tied very heavily to Part 135 air carrier certification.
Which is the standard for small airlines, basically.
Exactly. It's for non-scheduled passenger or cargo operations. So even when Part 108 is finalized for BVLOS flight, cargo operators will still need that Part 135 certificate. It's a much higher bar with robust safety management systems and a lot of operational scrutiny.
Okay, next up, the one everyone sees flying around their neighborhood, suburban fast-mile retail.
This market is scaling incredibly fast because it solves that nagging last-mile problem. And suburbs offer the best trade-off.
Enough density for lots of orders, but enough space to fly safely.
Right, you have yards, fewer skyscrapers. It's a safer operational environment than a dense downtown. And the sweet spot, looking at what companies like Wing and Walmart are doing, is currently focused on about a 5-pound payload within about a 6-mile radius delivered in 30 minutes.
So we're not talking about replacing the weekly grocery run. This is for urgent convenience.
It's pure urgent convenience. You forgot the Tylenol for the baby. You need a specific ingredient for dinner. The advantage isn't that it's cheaper per mile than a truck. The advantage is it bypasses all the traffic friction and provides reliable, fast delivery. You're paying for predictability and speed.
And finally, a really specific but high ROI win, industrial and remote sites.
This is pure economics. In oil and gas, mining, or utilities with remote sites, if a work crew forgets one small but critical part, a sensor, a gasket,
it can idle a whole specialized crew.
And that downtime can cost tens of thousands of dollars an hour. A drone wins because the part is small, the need is critical, and the warehouse might be an hour away by a bumpy, unpredictable dirt road.
And the global track record really supports this focus on beating road friction.
Absolutely. I mean, Zipline has done over 1 million commercial deliveries globally, mostly medical supplies in places where the roads are slow or just non-existent. Their whole hub-and-spoke model proves that when time reliability is everything, drones provide an incredible service.
So if we boil down the advantages over trucks, it comes down to 3 things.
I'd say so. First, time reliability. Drones offer a predictable, direct route. Second, they bypass road friction. They fly over bridges, rivers, traffic jams. And third, they have a lower cost of delay. The economic value is in avoiding that expensive waiting time.
Cargo is exciting, but the biggest opportunity for scale, especially for DaaS, is in repetitive, automated monitoring for critical infrastructure. Let's start with utilities.
Utilities are a perfect fit. They have massive asset sprawl, high safety risks for human inspectors, and a constant need for proactive inspection. DaaS excels here by turning periodic site visits into continuous monitoring.
So things like substation inspections, vegetation patrols along power lines.
And rapid storm damage assessment. The real value is high-speed change detection. You fly the exact same route every month, and the software immediately flags what's new: a leaning pole, a tree branch that's grown too close.
But the utility can't just outsource its core engineering judgment. What do they have to keep in-house?
They have to retain control of the risk decisions. That means keeping the Asset Risk Acceptance Authority. Their engineers decide what's an acceptable flaw. They have to define their own defect taxonomy, what counts as a severity 1, 2, or 3 problem in their system, and they must retain absolute work order decision-making authority.
The vendor provides the data, the utility provides the judgment.
That's the model.
Next, oil and gas. Hazardous environments, huge downtime costs.
Here, the value of DaaS is primarily safety. It keeps people out of harm's way. It's perfect for facility integrity checks on things like flare stacks, leak reconnaissance, and supporting major maintenance planning.
And the in-house requirements are even stricter.
Oh, absolutely. They must keep operational ownership of site safety controls, like defining exclusion zones. And they need ironclad data governance and retention because this is highly sensitive, proprietary operational data. You don't outsource the security of your trade secrets.
And finally, public safety. Police, fire, emergency services. Here, the value is all about speed of information.
It's all about decision advantage. DaaS shines in high-stress, low-clarity situations. Search and rescue, real-time wildfire mapping, crash scene documentation. It's about getting actionable information to commanders on the ground faster than they could ever get it themselves.
But again, they have to retain control.
They must retain mission command authority. They must follow strict evidence handling and chain of custody rules, since that drone footage could end up in court. And they have to own their local community and privacy policy. But They are perfect candidates to outsource surge capacity. When a hurricane hits and their own fleet is overwhelmed, bringing in a DaaS partner makes perfect sense.
It's so clear that success here is all about turning this complex tech into a manageable, audit-ready business process. But every huge shift has equally huge hurdles. Let's talk about the roadblocks that will really determine the pace of this revolution. We've established that the whole safety case for BVLOS rests on systems, and those systems have to have certified, predictable performance. So let's look at the three biggest technical hurdles, starting with detect and avoid, or DA.
DAA is the technical holy grail. It's the key to integrating unpiloted and piloted aircraft in the same airspace. For BVLOS to work routinely, the DAA systems, the little radars, the cameras, the algorithms, they need certifiable performance standards.
It's not enough to have a flashy demo in the desert.
Not at all. You have to be able to prove mathematically its probability of collision avoidance. The performance has to be insurable, repeatable, and maintainable in all weather conditions, at scale.
And this is where the standards bodies like the RTCA come in, right?
Yes, exactly. Groups like RTCA Special Committee 228 are the ones writing the Minimum Operational Performance Standards, the MOPS, for these systems. They're the engineers defining the technical blueprint that the FAA then relies on to write the rules. If the MOPS aren't done, the FAA can't write a reliable rule for Part 108.
Okay, next hurdle, C2 link resilience. The command and control link is everything.
It is the lifeline. BVLOS operations live or die on the reliability of that link. And right now, most commercial operations lean very heavily on terrestrial cellular networks.
Which seems like a massive single point of failure.
It is. The problem is twofold. First, your cell provider doesn't offer aviation-grade guarantees. They offer best effort service, which is not what you want for an aircraft. And second, inconsistent coverage and interference become existential risks when you scale up from one drone in a field to a fleet of 10 flying over a city. A widespread cellular outage becomes a common mode systemic failure.
And third, even if we solve DAA and C2, we still need the underlying digital infrastructure to manage all this traffic, airspace integration at scale.
This is the UTM or UAS traffic management challenge. The key word is interoperability. If you have different operators using different UTM systems that can't talk to each other cleanly, you get brittle, unsafe operations.
So when a new delivery service launches in a corridor that's already being used for inspections,
their systems must instantly and reliably coordinate that strategic deconfliction. If the systems are fragmented, it leads to human improvisation, and improvisation is penalized brutally at scale.
technical hurdles are engineering problems. You can throw money at them. But operational and political hurdles, those are people problems. Much harder. Let's start with community acceptance.
You can get the FAA's approval to fly, but that only gets you halfway there. Scaling BVLOS, especially over populated areas, requires addressing noise complaints, managing real privacy concerns, navigating local politics.
The FAA itself has noted that the industry isn't very good at this.
They're not. They struggle to articulate the community benefit. If you can't show the local population the clear, measurable benefit, then public trust becomes the absolute gating factor. The social license to operate is non-negotiable.
And the real world isn't static, it's constantly changing.
That's the problem of dynamic obstacles. Urban BVLOS isn't just about avoiding buildings on a map. You have to account for temporary things. A construction crane that goes up overnight. A city bucket truck repairing a traffic light.
We've seen real-world examples of this, like the Amazon drone incident with a crane.
We have, and it proves that this is a genuine safety challenge. Managing this risk requires incredibly mature processes and coordination with local authorities. You can't just rely on the drone's autonomy alone.
Finally, there's just the weight of the regulatory process itself, the regulatory transition pain.
This is a huge factor for business planning. The timeline between the Part 108 proposal in 2025, the comment period, the final rule, its effective date. That whole period, which could be years, risks operators getting stuck on that old, slow, bespoke approval treadmill while they're trying to build a scalable business.
So they have to design their business for a rule that doesn't exist yet.
They do. And they risk making very costly pivots if the final rule changes significantly. It's an agonizing tightrope to walk.
So if the whole industry is pivoting from sticks to systems, the job description for the human is changing completely.
Autonomy is so often misunderstood. It doesn't eliminate the human, it just shifts their role. The human moves from being a tactical, real-time controller to being a strategic system supervisor and an exception handler.
Their expertise is less about flying and more about what? Designing the mission.
Designing the mission parameters, defining the safety thresholds, monitoring the system's conformance, and executing contingency procedures when something goes wrong. They're managing the rules of the game, not the joystick.
And as the tech gets better, the supervision ratio changes. 1 human to many aircraft.
Exactly. That's where the real cost savings come from, but it's also where the risk profile changes. We'll see ratios move from 1 to 2 to maybe 1 to 10 for simpler missions. The person in the ops center becomes a flight coordinator or an operations supervisor.
And they're only intervening when the system flags a problem.
Right. But the risk is no longer a single pilot making a single error. The risk becomes systemic.
That has to be the big regulatory concern.
It is. The worry is a common mode failure. A software bug, a GPS jamming event, a network outage that affects all 10 aircraft at once. Now, your 1 human supervisor, who is your safety backstop, is completely overwhelmed. This is why disciplined procedures are so essential.
Given all this, the FCC constraints, the Part 108 transition, the shift in labor, what is the winning posture for 2026 to 2030?
It's all about rigor and resilience. First, that anti-fragile procurement we talked about. You have to navigate the supply chain friction. That means diversifying platforms and locking down your parts and support strategy early.
And
compliance by design. You have to treat cybersecurity, supply chain provenance, data governance, and meticulous record-keeping as core operational requirements from day one, not as IT paperwork you do later.
which implies that the top leaders in this space in 2030 won't necessarily be pilots.
They'll be the people who can run a high-reliability organization, an HRO. That is the hidden skill of the next decade.
What does that mean, an HRO?
It's an organization that is obsessed with avoiding catastrophic failure through disciplined operations, continuous improvement, and a culture of safety. They handle anomalies calmly and methodically. Anyone can go out and buy a fleet of drones. The real competitive moat will be the ability to operate that fleet safely, repeatably, and with unimpeachable, audit-ready assurance at massive scale. That takes HRO discipline.
So what does this all mean? We've seen that the commercial BVLOS industry is going through this profound, irreversible transformation. It's moving from being an exception to being an integrated utility.
And it's driven by these two powerful forces happening at the same time. The security mandates from the FCC forcing supply chain rigor, and the demand for routine operations being codified by the FAA's Part 108, enabled by the DaaS model.
The core takeaway seems to be that the future of BVLOS isn't about how far a drone can fly. It's about systemic assurance.
It's all about how reliably the human can supervise the system, how rigorously the data is governed, and whether the provider can sell auditable assurance-guaranteed uptime, performance logs, not just flight hours. The complexity is being outsourced, but accountability is being formalized to the level of traditional aviation.
And we've seen that the value of the operator shifts directly from great pilot to great system manager. So if the ultimate competitive advantage for these DaaS companies is their ability to provide those audit-ready evidence logs and reliability metrics, the whole training pipeline has to change.
It has to change immediately.
So how quickly can the industry shift its focus from traditional flight skills to creating that high reliability organizational discipline? What are you doing to prepare for that systemic shift in expertise?
Think about it. The rules are being written to scale systems, not individual skills.
Yeah.
And that transformation is happening right now.
That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.